The hall was silent. Only the sound of heavy chains echoed as the alien girl was pushed to the center. Her wrists were bound, her face pale, her eyes lowered to the cold floor. The council sat high above on a stone platform, their faces hidden behind masks of authority. They looked down at her as if she was not a person but only a number in their records. She was young, fragile, and tired. Her family had fallen into deep debt after her father's illness. They had sold their land, their tools, even the clothes, off their backs, but the debt was still unpaid. In their world, debts were not forgiven, they were punished, and tonight, she was the one chosen to suffer. The council leader stood, his voice cold and sharp. For the crime of failing to pay, this girl will be rented by 10 men in one night. The word struck her heart like knives. The crowd gasped. Some turned their faces away. Others whispered in hunger or pity, but no one dared to object. The girl's lips trembled. She wanted to scream, to beg, to run, but her legs felt weak, her chains heavy. She remembered her mother's tears, her little brother's cries when guards came to take her. She had promised them she would survive, but now, survival felt like a curse. Guards pulled her toward the chamber doors. The wooden doors groaned as they opened, showing a dim hall lit with torches. Shadows moved across the walls, men waiting in silence. The girl's heart pounded louder than her footsteps. Every beat told her the same thing, her life was no longer hers. Among the crowd, one figure stood apart. He was not like the others. His clothes were simple, worn from travel. His face was human, his eyes followed her, not with desire, but with something deeper. His hands clenched at his sides as if holding back anger. He said nothing, but his silence was heavy. The girl was thrown to the floor of the chamber. The guards laughed, calling her names. They said she was nothing more than payment, nothing more than flesh. Her chains rattled as she tried to rise, but they shoved her down again. Tears stung her eyes, but she bit her lip, refusing to let them see her break. The council's judgment echoed in her head. 10 men in one night. The number spun like fire in her chest. Each step into the chamber felt like walking toward her grave. The smell of sweat and smoke filled her nose. Her skin shivered, her spirit begged for escape. Outside the chamber doors, the human still stood, his heart burned with rage. He had seen cruelty before, but this was worse. He could not look away from her. In that moment, he made a choice. He did not know how, he did not know why, but he knew this night would not end the way the council planned. The girl lifted her head for a brief second, and her eyes met his through the doorway. For the first time, she saw something that did not look like hunger or cruelty. She saw pity, she saw fire, she saw defiance. It was only for a heartbeat, but that heartbeat gave her strength. The guards pushed her forward. "The first man will enter soon," one of them said, laughing. The girl closed her eyes, praying in silence. Her lips moved without sound, asking the universe for mercy, asking for a miracle. The torches flickered, the hall grew darker, the air thick with dread. Outside, the human stepped closer to the chamber door. His shadow touched the threshold. He took a deep breath, ready to step where no man dared. The girl heard the door creak. Her heart stopped. The first man was coming. She braced herself for pain, for shame. But she did not know that the man who entered would not be like the others. He would not come to break her. He would come to change everything. And so the sentence began, not as the council intended, but as fate had written. In the darkest night of her life, a spark was waiting to burn. The heavy chamber door closed with a loud thud. The sound echoed in the girl's ears like a final judgment. She sat on the cold floor, her chains biting into her wrists. The torchlight flickered against the stone walls, painting her face with shadows. Her heart pounded, waiting for the first man to appear. She expected cruelty. She expected hunger in the eyes of whoever entered. She braced herself for pain. Her body trembled, but her spirit whispered, "Endure. Survive. Just survive." The lock clicked. The door creaked, and footsteps slowly entered the chamber. She held her breath, afraid to look up. The silence was heavy, broken only by the sound of boots on stone. When she finally raised her eyes, she froze. It was the human, the same one she had seen in the crowd. His face was calm, but his eyes carried something she had not seen in a long time. Sorrow. His gaze did not strip her. It did not wound her. It searched her face as if asking for forgiveness. The guards outside laughed. One shouted, "Don't take too long, human. 9 more men wait their turn." Their voices faded as the door closed fully. The chamber fell into silence. Only the 2 of them remained. The girl pressed herself against the wall, her breath shaking. She whispered, "Do what you must. Just make it quick." Her voice cracked like broken glass. Her eyes filled with tears. She tried to hold back, but the human stepped closer, not with hunger, but with care. He crouched in front of her, lowering himself so his eyes met hers. "What is your name?" he asked softly. His voice was calm, steady, like a hand reaching in the dark. Her lips parted in shock. She had expected anything but this. No one had asked her name in months. To the council, she was only debt. To the guards, she was only property. Her voice trembled. "Lyra," she said, almost too quiet to hear. The human nodded, as if her name meant something powerful. "Lyra," he repeated, "I will not hurt you." His words struck her harder than the sentence itself. She blinked in disbelief. You don't have to lie," she whispered. He shook his head. His eyes never wavered. "I'm not here to hurt you." Then, hearing the guards shuffle outside, he leaned closer. His face hardened, and his tone turned sharp, pretending for the ears at the door. "Obey me," he barked loudly, grabbing her chain roughly. Lyra flinched, her heart racing, but then his hand loosened, his grip softened. He whispered so low only she could hear, "I'm sorry, I had to act." She stared at him, confusion battling with fear. He pulled a small flask from his coat and pressed it to her lips. "Drink," he said in his false, harsh tone. But his eyes pleaded. "Trust me," she sipped. Cool water touched her tongue. She hadn't tasted water in hours, maybe longer. Her throat burned with relief. She coughed, but he steadied her. His hand was warm despite the chill in the room. "Why?" she asked, her voice shaking. "Why? Are you being kind?" She couldn't understand. No one was kind when punishment was ordered. The human looked at her, shadows flickering across his face. "Because I cannot watch another innocent suffer," he said softly. Then louder, for the guards, he slammed the flask shut. "Useless," he growled, tossing it aside. The act fooled the ears outside, but Lyra knew the truth. For the first time in years, she felt something stir inside her chest, a small flame of hope, fragile but alive. She hugged her knees, trying to hide her tears, not of fear, but of confusion. The human sat down beside her, keeping enough distance not to frighten her. "You will survive tonight," he said firmly. "I swear it." His tone carried the weight of someone who had made oaths before, someone who had lost before. She turned her head, studying his face. He looked tired, scarred by a life of struggle. Yet behind his eyes was a storm, not against her, but against the world that had condemned her. Outside, the guards laughed and drank. They believed inside the chamber was only cruelty. They had no idea a secret was forming, a dangerous bond born in whispers and kindness. The girl shifted, her voice low. "What is your name?" she asked. Her chains rattled as she moved. The human hesitated, then replied, "Kyle." His name sounded strange to her tongue, but strong. "Kyle," she repeated, like it was a secret shared between them. She felt safer holding it, like a key to something unknown. He leaned close, his voice a whisper that barely touched the air. "Lyra, listen to me. I will not let the others touch you tonight." Her eyes widened in fear and disbelief. "But how?" she whispered. "The council will kill you." His jaw tightened, his fists clenched. "Then let them try," he said. The fire in his voice lit something inside her heart. She stared at him, torn between fear and the impossible hope he offered. The night had only begun, but already the first man was not what she feared. He was something else. Something dangerous, not to her body, but to the chains of her fate. Lyra did not know if she could trust him, but as her eyes met his again, she felt the whisper of destiny. This night would not end as the council planned. This night was the beginning of something. The galaxy itself could not stop. The chamber grew quieter as the night deepened. The torches hissed, shadows stretched longer on the walls. Outside, the guards laughed and drank, their voices loud, their minds certain that inside only shame and cruelty were taking place. But behind the heavy wooden door, a different story was unfolding. Lyra sat against the wall, her arms wrapped tightly around her knees. Her body trembled, not from cold alone, but from the storm inside her heart. She still could not believe the man before her, Kyle, was real. He had not touched her with cruelty, he had not spoken to her like she was dirt. Instead, he had given her water, spoken her name, and promised to protect her. It felt like a dream too fragile to last. Kale moved slowly, careful with each gesture. He reached into his coat again, pulling out a piece of cloth. It was rough but clean. He offered it to her. "Wipe your face," he said in a harsh tone for the guards who might be listening. But when his eyes met hers, they softened. Her hands shook as she took the cloth, pressing it to her tear-stained cheeks. She whispered, Why are you doing this?" Her voice was barely a breath, but her heart screamed the question louder. Kale leaned back against the wall, his eyes fixed on the flames of the torch. "Because I know what it means to be powerless," he whispered. His tone was low, heavy with memory. For a moment his eyes looked far away, as if seeing ghosts she could not see. Lyra studied him, the lines of his face, the scars on his knuckles. This man carried battles in his skin. She wanted to ask more, but fear still kept her chained. Instead, she whispered, "They will know. They will punish you." Kale's lips curved into the faintest smile, not of joy, but of defiance. "Then let them try," he repeated. His voice was steady, carrying the strength of a man who had already chosen his path. The night dragged on. Minutes felt like hours. Every time the guards shuffled outside or knocked on the door, Kale would raise his voice, barking orders at her like a cruel master. His words were sharp, but his eyes begged her to understand. And when the footsteps faded again, he would whisper soft reassurances. He offered her a piece of bread from his pack. It was dry and small, but to Lyra it was a feast. Her stomach ached with hunger, and tears rolled down her cheeks as she chewed slowly. She had not tasted food with kindness in so long. She wanted to thank him, but the words stuck in her throat. Kale noticed. His gaze softened once more. "Eat, Lyra," he said gently. "You need strength. You will need it for what is to come." Her eyes widened. "What do you mean?" she asked. Fear flickered in her chest again. Hope was dangerous. Too dangerous to trust. Kale leaned closer, lowering his voice until it was almost nothing. "I will not let them take you to the next man," he whispered. "I will keep you safe through the night." Her heart thudded hard. She shook her head. "It's impossible. They will never allow it," she whispered back. Her chains rattled as her hands clenched. Kale's eyes glimmered in the torchlight. "I have ways," he said. His words carried weight, secrets hidden in their simplicity. Lyra studied him again, trying to read his truth. Was this another trick, another cruel game? But when she saw the fire in his eyes, the storm that refused to break her, she felt something shift. She whispered, "Why risk everything for me?" Kale's jaw tightened, his hand curled into a fist. "Because I lost someone once," he said. His voice cracked slightly. "Someone like you, she was taken, punished, and no one saved her." He took a shaky breath. "I swore I would never stand aside again." The words hit Lyra like lightning. She felt his pain bleed through the cracks of his voice. He was not lying. He carried loss like chains heavier than hers. For the first time that night, she reached out, her trembling fingers brushing his sleeve. It was a small touch, but it carried the weight of trust. Her whisper broke in the silence. "Then, maybe tonight, maybe I can believe you." Kyle's eyes softened more than before. His hand gently covered hers, only for a heartbeat. Then he pulled away quickly as boots thudded outside. He stood tall and barked out loud, "Silence, or I'll make you regret it." His tone filled the chamber with cruelty for the guard's ears. But Lyra now knew the truth behind it. The footsteps faded again, and the silence returned. This time it felt less heavy, less suffocating. The torch crackled, the breadcrumbs lay between them, and a fragile bond grew in the shadows. Hours passed, and no other man entered. The guards believed the human was taking his time. They mocked from afar, laughing about what they thought was happening, but they had no idea. Inside, Cale sat beside her, keeping watch, his eyes sharp on the door, his body ready to fight if needed. And Lyra, for the first time in her life, fell into a restless sleep, not of despair, but of a small, dangerous hope. When her head tilted and rested against his shoulder, he did not move. He only looked at the flames and whispered to himself, "Not this time, never again." The night was not over. The danger was not gone. But in the darkest hour, kindness had bloomed where cruelty was meant to rule. And it was only the beginning. The first light of dawn was still far away, but time moved fast inside the chamber. The torches burned low, their flames swaying as if tired. Outside, the guards had grown noisy, their voices slurred with drink. They joked that the human was enjoying himself more than anyone expected. None of them knew the truth. Inside, Lyra sat quietly against the wall, her chains heavy on her wrists. She had eaten the small piece of bread, drunk the water, and even rested her head against Cale for a moment. It felt unreal, like she was living someone else's dream. But the dream was fragile. It could shatter the moment the guards opened the door. Cale stood in the middle of the room now, pacing back and forth. His eyes were sharp, his body tense like a fighter before a battle. He had already made a choice, but now he was shaping a plan. He could not let the council's punishment continue, not tonight, not ever. Lyra watched him carefully. "You should not risk this," she whispered. Her voice trembled. "If they find out, they will kill you, and they will make me suffer worse." Kyle turned toward her, his eyes burned with determination. "Lyra, I don't care about their threats," he said. "I will not let them touch you. I promised you that, and I don't break promises." Her heart raced at his words. They were strong, too strong. She wanted to believe them, but fear chained her tighter than iron. "But how?" she asked. "There are 9 more men waiting. The guards, the council, all of them." Cale crouched in front of her, his voice lowered until only she could hear. "I will buy the night," he whispered. Her eyes widened. "Buy," she repeated, confusion in her tone. He nodded. "I still carry credits more than they expect from a traveler," he explained. "If I pay them enough, they will hand you over to me for the rest of the night. They don't care about honor, only about profit. If I pay, they will take the money and drink themselves into silence." Lyra's chest tightened. "You would give everything for me?" she asked in disbelief. "But why?" Cale's jaw tightened. "Because your life is worth more than coin," he said. His tone was steady but carried fire. "Because I cannot stand by while they treat you like this, not while I can still act." She looked down at her chains, tears burning her eyes. Nobody had ever spoken such words for her. Nobody had ever valued her beyond her debt. For a moment she allowed herself to feel the warmth of his defiance, but then fear returned. And what if they betray you? What if they take the money and still send the others? Cale's lips curled into a grim smile. "Then they will regret it," he said. His hand brushed against his coat where a hidden device lay concealed. She noticed the movement, but he quickly looked away, not wanting her to ask, not wanting her to carry the weight of his secret weapon. The knock came, sharp and loud. A guard shouted through the door, "Time is up, human. The second man is ready." The laughter of drunken voices followed. Lyra froze. Her breath caught in her chest. Her heart screamed in panic. Cale rose to his feet, his face hardening into stone. He opened the door slightly, enough for the guards to see his glare. "Not yet," he barked. "I paid for more time, and I'll pay more still." The guards blinked in surprise. Coins clinked as Kale tossed a pouch into their hands. The sound of money was stronger than any law. Their laughter grew. One of them shouted, "Triple pay, eh, human? Enjoy your prize then, but don't think you can cheat us. We'll take her at dawn if you want her or not." The door slammed shut again. The sound echoed through the chamber. Kale's shoulders loosened slightly. He turned back to Lyra, who stared at him in shock. "You bought me," she whispered, the words heavy. Her voice shook. "But not as they wanted." Kyle nodded, kneeling before her again. "No, Lyra," he said firmly. "I bought your safety. I bought us time. That's all. They will not touch you tonight." Her tears finally fell. She shook her head, whispering, "Why? Why do this for me?" Kyle's gaze softened. "Because I see you, not your debt," he said. His voice broke slightly but carried truth. "Because someone once needed me to act and I failed. I will not fail you." The chamber fell quiet again, but the silence was no longer heavy with despair. It carried danger, yes, but also the promise of something more. Lyra lowered her head, pressing her chains to her chest. She whispered softly, almost like a prayer, "Thank you, Kyle." Kyle did not reply. He simply sat beside her, his eyes locked on the door, his hand near the hidden device in his coat. He knew the guards would come again, and when they did, coin might not be enough. For now, though, they had bought a fragile peace, a dangerous secret sealed behind stone walls. And outside, the night waited, ready to test how far one human would go against a world built on cruelty. The chamber was silent again, but Lyra's heart was not. It beat so loudly in her chest she feared the guards outside might hear it. She sat in the corner, her knees pulled up to her chest, staring at Kale. This man, this human, had bought her night, not for cruelty, but for protection. She still could not understand why. Kale leaned against the wall, his arms folded, his eyes sharp on the heavy wooden door. He seemed calm, but inside his mind raced. Every second that passed was borrowed time. He knew at dawn the guards would not be satisfied. They would come to take her, and money would no longer matter. He needed another way. Lyra broke the silence first, her voice trembling. "You cannot stop them forever, Kale. They will return, and they will take me. You will die for nothing." Kale turned his head, his eyes locking with hers. "No, Lyra," he said firmly. "I will not die for nothing, and neither will you. We will escape." Her breath caught. The word felt foreign, like something forbidden. "Escape," she whispered, almost afraid to speak it. "That is impossible. No one escapes the council. No one." Kyle crouched down in front of her, lowering his voice until it was barely more than a breath. "Listen to me," he said. "The guards are drunk. The city is distracted with its own corruption. I have tools they do not know of, and I have walked paths they cannot see. If you trust me, we can make it out before dawn." Her chains rattled. As she shifted, fear in her eyes. "Why should I trust you?" she asked. "Why should I believe a man I met only tonight?" Kyle's face hardened, but his voice softened. "Because if I meant to hurt you, I would have done it already," he said. "Because I risked my life to buy your safety when I could have turned away, and because I swore to myself I would never let someone suffer while I could still fight." Lyra's lips trembled. She wanted to argue, to push him away, but the truth of his words was too strong. He had already done more for her in a few hours than anyone else in her life. She closed her eyes, whispering, "If I trust you, what will happen to me?" Kale leaned closer, his eyes burning with determination. "Then you will live, and you will be free," he said. Her chest tightened. The word free was dangerous, but it was also beautiful. For years, she had been nothing but debt, property, a body to be used and punished. The thought of freedom was like fire, burning her fear into something new. Kale pulled a small device from his coat and showed it to her. It was no larger than his palm, metallic with faint glowing lines. Lyra's eyes widened. "What is that?" she whispered. "A signal disruptor," Kale explained. "It will cut the locks for a few seconds, enough to break your chains. It will confuse the guards' alarms when we move. It won't last long, but it will give us a chance. Her voice shook. You brought this with you. You planned this. Cale shook his head. No, I did not plan to find you here, he said. But I have lived long enough to know that cruelty hides in every corner. I carry tools for survival, and tonight, survival means saving you. Lyra's hands trembled as she looked at the chains around her wrists. Her heart wanted to believe, but her mind screamed of the danger. If they catch us, she whispered, they will kill us both. Cale's eyes did not waver. Then we will make sure they don't catch us, he said. His voice was steady, full of steel. Silence filled the chamber again, but it was no longer heavy with despair. It was alive with something else, a whisper of hope, fragile but real, Lyra. Finally nodded, her tears falling quietly. I will trust you, Cale, she whispered. But if we fail, promise me one thing. He frowned. What? Promise me you will not let them take me alive again, she said. Her voice broke, but her eyes held a strange strength. Cale's chest tightened, his jaw clenched as he whispered back, I promise, but we will not fail. He reached for Wam. The chains pressing the device against the lock, sparks lit the air. A soft hum filled the chamber, and suddenly the metal snapped open. The chains fell from her wrists, clattering against the floor. Lyra gasped, rubbing her raw skin. For the first time in years, her hands were free. She looked at Cale with wide eyes. It worked, she whispered. Cale gave a small nod. It's only the first step, he said. Stay close to me no matter what happens. Do not let go of my hand. She swallowed hard, her body trembling, but she nodded. For the first time, she felt the weight of possibility. Outside, the guards laughed louder, drunk and careless. They had no idea the prisoner inside was no longer chained. They had no idea the punishment was about to turn into rebellion. Cale looked at Lyra one last time, his hand reaching for hers. Are you ready? He whispered. Her fingers slipped into his, fragile but strong. Her whisper carried both fear and courage. Yes. And in that moment, the whisper of escape became a plan. The night that began with chains and shame now carried the promise of freedom. But the danger waiting outside would test them both. The chamber was no longer a prison. The chains lay broken on the floor, cold and useless. Lyra's wrists were free, though still red and sore from the iron bite. She stared at her hands in disbelief, touching her own skin as if she was dreaming. Cale stood beside her, the small device still glowing faintly before dimming back to silence. Stay quiet, he whispered, his hand tightening around hers. The hardest part is just beginning. Lyra's breath shook as she nodded. Her body trembled, but her heart carried something new, courage mixed with fear. She had lived all her life under rules and debts, never believing she could escape them. Yet here she was, unchained, about to defy the council itself. Cale pushed open the chamber. Door a crack, the smell of wine and roasted meat drifted in. The guards were seated near a table down the hall, their helmets tossed aside, their mugs raised. Their laughter boomed as they played a game with dice. Too drunk, too careless. Cale looked back at Lyra, his voice low. We move now, follow me, do not hesitate. If they see us, we run. If they block us, I fight. But you must not stop. Her throat was dry, but she whispered, I understand. He pulled her into the shadows. His steps were silent, every move controlled like a predator in the night. Lyra tried to follow, her bare feet soft against the cold floor. The chains were gone, but the weight of fear still clung to her. She prayed each heartbeat would not betray them. They slipped past the guard's table. The men were laughing too loud to notice. One slammed his mug down, spilling ale across the floor. Another cursed as his dice rolled away. Cale used the noise to guide Lyra quickly into a side passage. The hallway was narrow, the air damp with stone and smoke. Torches flickered against walls covered with cracks. Cale moved swiftly, his eyes sharp for danger. Lyra stumbled once, but his arm steadied her. His grip was firm, not harsh. A hand that carried both strength and protection. Suddenly a shout rang out. One of the guards had looked toward the chamber and seen the empty chains glittering on the floor. She's gone! The voice roared. The hall exploded with the sound of boots and blades drawn from their sheaths. Kyle cursed under his breath, pulling Lyra forward. "Run!" he ordered. His voice carried no hesitation, only command. She obeyed, her legs moving, faster than she thought possible. The pounding of guards echoed behind them. The chase had begun. They burst into a larger hall lit by high windows where moonlight poured in. Shadows stretched like claws across the stone. Lyra gasped for air, but Kyle pulled her on. His free hand reached inside his coat, pressing another small device. Sparks flashed, and a door ahead unlocked with a metallic click. They rushed through, but the noise had drawn the guards closer. Arrows clattered against the stone near their feet. One barely missed Lyra's shoulder. She screamed, but Kale shoved her down and shielded her with his body. His eyes burned as he shouted, "Keep moving." They sprinted through the passage. The alarm bells began to ring across the city. Voices shouted orders. Torches flared. It was no longer a secret escape. It was open rebellion. The council's wrath would come with fire. At the end of the hall, 2 guards blocked their path. Blades drawn, their eyes gleamed with cruelty. "Going somewhere, human," one sneered. Kale pushed Lyra behind him. His hand pulled a hidden weapon from his coat. A sleek rod that hummed with energy. With one strike, it lit up the dark, crackling as it smashed against the guard's blade. The metal shattered like glass. The guard screamed and fell. The second lunged, but Kyle's fist struck his jaw with brutal force. He crumpled to the ground. Unconscious, Kale's chest heaved with fury, his voice sharp as he said, "Move now." Lyra ran, her tears mixing with sweat. She had never seen such defiance, never seen anyone fight against the council's power. Her fear was still there, but it was joined by awe. Outside, the night exploded with chaos. Flames from torches spread as panicked guards knocked them against wooden stalls. Smoke rose into the sky. Bells clanged louder, waking the city. People poured into the streets, some shouting, others fleeing. Kale pulled Lyra into the narrow alleys, weaving between shadows. The guards were everywhere now, hunting. Their cries echoed, "The debt girl has escaped with the human." Lyra's chest burned, her body begged to stop, but Kale dragged her onward. "Just a little further," he urged. His eyes scanned the rooftops until he spotted what he needed. An old watchtower at the edge of the city. Wall? Its stones were crumbling, its top broken, but it still stood tall. "That's our way out," he said, pointing. Her heart almost stopped. The wall was the final barrier. Beyond it lay the forests, the rivers, the unknown. But also freedom. They ran for the tower, but fire raged behind them now. Guards poured from the barracks, their torches blazing, their arrows darkened the sky. One struck the wall near Kale's head, showering them with stone dust. Kale pushed Lyra into the tower's base, slamming the door shut behind them. His chest rose and fell heavily. His face was streaked with sweat and ash, but his eyes burned brighter than the fire outside. Lyra clung to the wall, her heart racing. "We cannot make it," she cried. "There are too many." Kale turned to her, his hand gripping her shoulder firmly. "Listen to me, Lyra," he said, his voice sharp with urgency. "This is the moment you wanted to believe in me, now you must. If we climb this tower, if we leap beyond those walls, they will not catch us. You will be free." Her tears streamed down, but she nodded. His words cut through her fear like a blade through chains. She whispered, "Then I will follow you." Outside, the city roared with fire and fury. The council had unleashed its wrath. But inside the tower, 2 figures climbed toward freedom, their hearts beating against the night. And so the punishment meant to break her had set the world aflame. The night of fire had begun, and nothing would be the same again. The tower stones were cold beneath their hands. Each step upward scraped Lyra's skin, but she did not stop. Kale climbed ahead of her, strong and steady, pulling her when she slipped. The sounds of chaos below grew louder. The clash of steel, the shouts of guards, the bells of alarm. The city was burning, and their escape had lit the fire. At the top, the broken tower opened to the night sky. The moon shone silver across the walls. Beyond stretched the dark forest, endless and free. The air smelled of smoke and pine, a mixture of danger and hope. Lyra's chest heaved, her body trembling. "It's so high," she whispered, looking at the drop beyond the wall. The ground below looked far away, sharp with rocks and roots. Cale turned to her, his hand firm on her shoulder. "If we stay, we die," he said. "If we leap, we live. Trust me, Lyra." Her heart raced, but she nodded. She had trusted him this far, through chains, through fire, through fear. She could trust him now. The tower door below crashed open. Guards stormed inside. Their voices roared. "They're up there. Don't let them escape." Cale pulled a small rope coil from his pack. He tied it to a stone, tossing it down the wall. It swung against the stones, swaying dangerously. "Go," he urged. "Climb fast, I'll follow." Lyra grabbed the rope, her hands raw but determined. Her bare feet pressed against the wall as she lowered herself. Her breath came in sharp gasps. The rope burned her palms, but she held on. Below, the forest waited. Dark, but alive. Cale followed behind, steady and quick. His body shielded hers. As arrows whistled past, one arrow scraped his shoulder, and he grunted in pain. But he did not stop. He pressed downward, guiding her every step. When their feet finally touched the forest floor, Lyra almost collapsed. Cale caught her, holding her close for a brief moment, his breath ragged, his wound bleeding. But his eyes were alive. "Run," he whispered. "We're not safe yet." They darted into the trees. The forest swallowed them with shadows. Branches clawed at their skin. Roots caught at their feet, but they kept running. Behind them, the wall blazed with torches. Guards shouted as their light spilled into the trees. But the forest was vast. At last, Kyle slowed, pulling Lyra into a hollow of rocks. He pressed a finger to his lips. They crouched together in silence. The guards' voices grew faint, then disappeared into the distance. Only the forest sounds remained. The wind, the rustle of leaves, the call of a night. Lyra's chest heaved. She leaned against the rock, her eyes wide with shock. We made it," she whispered, her voice cracked with disbelief. Kyle sat beside her, pressing a cloth to his bleeding shoulder. His jaw clenched, but he managed a faint smile. "Yes, we did," he said. His eyes met hers, and for the first time, all night he allowed himself to breathe. She looked at him, her chains gone, her body free but her heart heavy with emotion. "You risked everything," she whispered. "For me? A stranger?" "Why?" Cale's hand trembled as he wiped the blood. From his arm he looked at her, his voice low but steady. "Because you are not a stranger anymore. Lyra," he said, "you are someone worth saving, someone worth fighting for." Her tears spilled freely. She pressed her hand against his, shaking her head. "I don't understand." His eyes burned with truth. "You don't have to understand. Just know that I chose you, not because of your debt, not because of what they wanted, but because of who you are." Lyra's breath caught. Her heart thudded as his words sank deep. She had lived her whole life unseen, unwanted, only measured by what she owed. And here was a man who had set fire to a city to free her. The forest wind whispered around them, carrying the smell of smoke and earth. In the shadows of the rocks, her hand slipped into his, fragile but firm. She whispered, "Then I choose you too." Cale's eyes softened. He squeezed her hand gently. A promise passed between them in silence, stronger than any vow spoken in the council's halls. Above the forest, the sky brightened with the first touch of dawn. The city behind them burned, but ahead lay freedom, a new beginning. They were fugitives now, hunted by the council, but also bound together. Lyra leaned against him, her head on his shoulder for the first time in her life. She did not feel like debt or punishment. She felt like a person. She felt alive. Cale whispered into her hair, "The galaxy will hunt us, but let them. I will not let them take you. Not now. Not ever." And in that quiet dawn, among the ashes of her old life, Lyra realized the punishment meant to destroy her had instead given her something she had never dared to hope for. A man who loved her enough to fight the galaxy itself.